welcome to Archaeologists Behaving Badly.
I'm Raquel.
And I'm tired. I'm Belle.
We're doing
Episode 8?
Episode 8, Maya, which
Right.
is going to be, which was a learning curve for me, very much so. Not so much for you. You've got a bit of background.
A little bit, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
Before we start, Raquel wanted to show another creepy doll. I think we have shown one before that we found in the auction rooms.
But this one
is...
When I actually found it, its head was backwards. It was like that. And I was just like, oh, what the f***? It doesn't have a top of the head. It's beautiful.
Actually the stuff that nightmares are made of.
Yeah.
So, oh, God.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah.
Okay.
I was hoping I could find something a little bit more less horrifying to start the episode with, but that's all we got. That's fine.
So, who's going first? Is it me?
Yeah. You are going first.
Okay, so where to start? So I've worked on an excavation of a Mayan city in Belize, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And so the Mayan civilization's from Mesoamerica. I'm sure most people know that. And I think like their earliest kind of settlements were around 2000 BCE, and the classical period or classic period? Sorry. It started in like 250 CE.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, and this is incredibly ignorant and a bit embarrassing, but I guess because we here in Australia don't really learn very much about the Americas as part of our schooling.
No.
Like primary school or
No.
anything.
No, we really don't.
Especially not like pre-European invasion Americas. So all I had really known about it was like learning about the Mayan civilization a little bit and that they like disappeared or whatever. So I always thought that there weren't any Mayans left.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. And I feel like I only learned that like maybe in my late teens, which is crazy. That actually, no, there are many millions of Mayans. Like they are alive and well. It's a living culture.
It's interesting to see like where people are from and what they get taught.
Yeah.
You know, like because in Australia it's not something that comes up.
Well, I didn't even really learn much. I think our schooling system has changed a bit now, but I didn't really learn much even about Indigenous Australia at school. Like that just wasn't part of our curriculum.
No, yeah, totally.
And I think that has changed, but it's not that long ago that we really didn't fucking learn very much at all. Oh, yeah. So once I started studying archaeology at uni, I was like, okay, I want to go on a field school somewhere in the world, and I just Google searching found the Maya Research Program, which are associated with the University of Texas at Tyler, and have a dig in Belize, which is lots of people haven't heard of Belize. It's actually a part of the Commonwealth.
Is it? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little country just to the south of Mexico on the Caribbean side.
On the west side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, wait. East,
sorry. Yeah. Yeah, east side. Yeah.
And the guy that started it, Tom, he had gone down there as part of his PhD working on a site, thinking that he'd be there for 3 years or something.
Yeah.
Three summer seasons.
Yeah.
And I don't know, 25 years later or however long it's been, it's still running, and they run a field school, and they're there for like 3 or 4 months of the year. So I went in my first year of studying as a student, and I had a lot of fun, and I got really lucky. I had asked to stay back at the campsite one day because I, like you, draw and had wanted to draw some of the artifacts just for fun. And
upskill and learn something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool.
And Tom was like, but can you actually draw? Because the illustrator couldn't come back this year. So I actually have things that need to be drawn for reports. So I ended up drawing for the rest of my time there. And then they invited me back for the next couple of years as the illustrator.
That's so cool. It's like meant to be. You know,
Yeah.
you're at the right place at the right time and you've got the skills. It was perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect to
I
slip in.
actually would really like to go back there. It's been many years now since I've been back. But yeah, so much fun. So much debauchery. Archaeologists in the middle of nowhere, locked in together.
Yeah.
It can get pretty wild. And then the actual archaeology itself, excavating a Mayan city. The site's called Blue Creek. It's in northwestern Belize, so I think it's like a couple of kilometers from the Mexican border and maybe like 20 or 30 from the Guatemalan border.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the archaeology itself was amazing,
Incredible.
and like being in the jungle and like
Yeah.
excavating little pyramids and
Yeah.
having to like chain smoke while you're working because there's so many mosquitoes. So
Oh my God.
half the team would have like a cigarette hanging out their mouth the whole time. Yeah,
Holy shit.
because the mosquitoes are relentless.
I would die.
Yeah.
I am like so allergic to mosquitoes. Like I would just straight up fucking die. That's interesting. I didn't realize that you went through a different, for some reason I thought maybe Latrobe, because we went to the same uni. I thought that maybe it was through our uni that we went to.
No, I was just like, because me discovering that I wanted to study archaeology was very like out of the blue, so I did it, and then maybe a semester in I was like, okay, I want to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first ones I found, and I knew nothing about the Maya.
Yeah.
The professor at Latrobe that was teaching
Yeah.
Mayan stuff had just left, so all of the Mayan subjects were
Oh, no
gone.
way. So he had left, because we went to uni we went to the same uni, but at different times.
Yeah.
So I originally went first kind of, but then I left and then I came back. And in that time that I was gone, you were there.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was my professor as well. And he's amazing. I think we've talked about him briefly before.
He's one of
Dave
the
Matthews.
people that Peter Matthews.
Peter Matthews.
Dave is
his son. Yeah. Peter Matthews.
Yeah, and Peter Matthews is one of the people who was on the team that deciphered the Mayan script.
Yeah. Insane. So cool.
Pretty wild.
Yeah. And like going on a field school, was it super expensive? Like the Belize one? Because like there's definitely price points. It can be quite expensive going.
Once I went back as their illustrator, I wasn't paying. I think the first one, it was probably like a couple of grand.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's kind of why I never ended up doing that, because I went straight into uni, and then I just, was living at a home and studying and working. I just didn't have the money to pull together, because it's like, and that's pretty much how you get the foot in the door. You kind of have to put that money in and choose a school, because it's like they're everywhere, all through Europe, South America,
There has been one, so when I was looking at a field school maybe a little bit further into my studies, there's an underwater GIS one in Greece, I think.
That's so cool.
That I still want to go and do.
Yeah. Have you ever been diving? Have you ever done that kind of? Really?
Yeah. So when I would go to Belize, I would go out to the islands, one of the islands, by myself for like a week, either before or after
the season.
Yeah. And go scuba diving.
Oh my God. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I know a couple of people that we know do that.
I haven't been scuba diving here. It doesn't really appeal to me.
No, well,
here.
I guess it wouldn't be the same. I mean, if you're doing it for those reasons, it wouldn't be the same.
I want to see like tropical fish and sharks, and
I'm like deathly
turtles.
Afraid of the ocean. I am so fucking afraid of the ocean.
I thought I was.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And then I went snorkeling once, and I hated being on top of the water, so I would like dive down as deep as I went, and I loved it. And that's when I was like, oh, actually, if I'm down,
Yeah.
I'm not afraid.
Because I think that's what it is for me. Because I
when
can't.
you're just on the top,
Yeah.
I'll never go surfing for that reason. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
just floating on the top, not knowing what's underneath.
Yeah. Because I think that's where it is for me. Like,
Scuba diving, you're like right down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what's going on.
Yeah. Maybe that's what I need to do because yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. And we have some amazing beaches in Australia. And like even going to Perth, I used to go to Perth quite a bit and like going to the beaches there and I cannot go further than my waist. Even like here as well, but like especially in Perth, it's like super beautiful.
There are like great whites over there.
Yeah, there are. Yeah. I remember
Because you can do cage dives and stuff in Perth.
I
can't
think
you?
so. Can you?
Or like, I'm pretty sure.
Pretty sure you do that in Adelaide as well, or like
Ah.
near Adelaide in South Australia somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm just, I'm such a pussy when it comes to that. When I was in Europe, I like jumped off. I was in Italy and I jumped off a boat into the ocean and I lasted 5 fucking minutes. I was so proud of myself. I lasted 5 minutes and I was like, cool, I did it. Like pat in the back, and then I was out and they saw me like panicking at the boat. They were like, do you need floaties or something?
Like, no, I can swim. I'm just having a panic attack.
I'm just having a panic attack because I have no idea what the fuck is below me. But yeah, that's a really good point. Maybe if you just put yourself underneath and you can actually see everything, maybe it's a lot less scarier. Fuck, maybe that's what I need to.
Yeah, you should do it.
That's what I need to do.
It's really fun. I have problems with my ears though, so I can't. Like, it takes me a really long time to equalize.
Okay.
And then when my ears equalize, it feels like an explosion happening in my head. And I can't.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I can't see for a few seconds.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I did go to like an ear specialist and she was like, yeah, I don't know exactly what that is, but I don't think that you should be diving.
Really?
Yeah. So I will go again, but
just test fate, you know?
I don't want to, I don't know, burst my eardrum.
Yeah, that's pretty serious. You got to be careful of that.
Yeah. So yeah, Belize, my research program. If you're interested in doing a field school, I recommend it. I learned a lot. It's a hell of a lot of fun. And yeah, like being in the jungle, even being at the camp. The camp is like in like a cleared area, maybe like 15 minutes drive from where the sites are, or 30 minutes drive from where the sites are. And there's like tree frogs in your cabins and scorpions everywhere and snakes, and maybe that's not selling it to some of you, but like
it's not selling it for me because I'm such a pussy when it comes to all of that stuff.
Being in the jungle and there's howler monkeys making the craziest noises, and I don't know, it just, I miss it.
Oh, that's cute.
It's making me feel really sad.
Oh, we don't want to be tired and sad.
No.
No.
Just tired.
Just tired.
What else was I going to say about it? I can't remember because I didn't write it down.
That doesn't help.
No, it definitely doesn't help.
Definitely doesn't help.
It's the first time I've done one where I like haven't written down what I wanted to say, thinking like, you have a million things to say.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, ugh.
How many seasons did you do? Like how many years did you do?
I only did 3, I think.
Okay. And also for like non-archaeologists, like a season is just basically like a period of time where you're
there.
Where you're there.
So the site operates maybe like 3 months of the year, and you can go for, as a student or whatever, you can go for 2-week blocks.
Yeah.
So you could go for the whole thing if you wanted to, but it would be pretty expensive.
Yeah. Because the kind of thing, like you pay for it and everything gets paid for, like your accommodation, your food and everything, and you're just there and you just work, basically.
Yeah, and that, because it's a non-profit organisation, that's how they fund the research.
Yeah,
I'm sure they get grants and stuff as well, but it's having students come and pay.
That's what
for
bankrolls it.
Yeah, pay for the experience.
Yeah.
And I also learn a lot of stuff there that I had never even thought about before. Like a lot of the sites, they rebury them.
Oh.
So that they don't get damaged, and because
that's good. That's really good.
Yeah, like maintaining the structures as a tourist attraction or whatever is really expensive.
Yeah.
so they rebury everything
Okay. Well, that's
once they kind of have done the research on it that they want so that it's protected.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and none of the artifacts or anything leaves Belize.
Okay, that's
Everything
really
stays there.
good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, stuff that I hadn't, especially like early in my studies, I hadn't really thought about that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
So I just had a little, one of my friends from that project, shout out to you, Carl. I made like 3 best friends because we were usually the drunkest. And they came with me to Paris one year for Christmas. Like,
Oh yeah, we talked about that last episode.
I'm gonna go and see them this year. They're all in different parts of America, but miss you guys. So he sent me a email from someone that he knows just about a cool burial site that had been excavated.
Yeah.
The settlement is called Altica, and it's one of the earliest settled villages.
Here we go.
Teotihuacan.
I never say it correctly.
I don't actually know how to say it. Fuck. Sorry. In that valley, 1,000 years kind of earlier. This is just taken straight from the email.
Oh, so this settlement's like 1,000 years earlier than
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
But in that valley.
Yeah. Yeah. So same area, but just okay. That's really cool. So it predates it.
Yeah, older.
Yeah.
They were active in interregional trade, sending out obsidian from the Otumba source in exchange for ceramics, greenstone, and other goods. Altica's major occupation was just after the decline of the Olmec in the basin of Mexico. It was occupied at a time in Mesoamerica that correlates with the emergence of increasing reliance on maize as a staple agricultural crop. And we see some of the earliest formal metates, which are grinding stones.
Cool.
At Altica at that site.
So some like pretty cool like
early,
like goods, artifacts and cool.
They were early experimentalists with agriculture. The people at Altica were not generally in good health. We don't know why people left Altica around 800 BCE, but today the saddle ridge where the site was located is severely eroded, which they think started because of the deforestation of their for their agriculture.
So they started logging, and that seriously like destabilized. Interesting, and they were like, "Okay, fuck, we have to move." Okay.
Yeah. So this is these burials that he's talking about. They are in an article in the journal Ancient Mesoamerica that talks about these burials, but other than that, it's not like a well-known.
Yeah, it's like a smaller.
Yeah. I mean, and that's like a lot of the stuff in archaeology. I mean, most of it doesn't even make it to a journal article.
No, and if I think about because like when I was studying for this, basically, it was like a blank slate. I mean, I was going back to things that I was taught in like first year uni.
Yeah.
And then you get told like the main sites, like the main really famous sites, which is like what, 5 of them maybe. But you think about how much work is actually going on there, how much stuff is constantly being, and it just kind of gets lost unless you're like one of those people that goes into these journals and looks at all the articles and actually like deep dives into it. You just don't know about it.
No.
It doesn't get publicized as much.
And actually so much happens in that region, like in Central America in general, of like roads being put in, train lines or tunnels or that kind of stuff, and just finding stuff, and it often just gets...
Yeah. I mean, that happens here even. You can imagine.
It happens everywhere,
yeah.
But I feel like I've read a lot of news articles over the last like 5 years where it's like, oh, something was
Whoops.
captured on.
Yeah.
There's like a massive structure here that they're
That's just
destroying
completely just tunneling
Yeah.
their way through it. Anyway, yeah.
So there were 4 burials at this site that they excavated. All were buried into graves carved into the tepetate. I'm not sure that that's how you say it. That's a conglomerate type of rock formed through volcanic mudslides. It's soft for rock, but not easy to dig.
Yeah, okay. So it was an effort. It was a fucking slog to get through it. Yeah.
Of the 4 burials, 3 like cysts, he's called them, were perfectly cylindrical.
Okay.
And the deepest was over a metre deep. The first burial appears to either have been a seated or bundled burial of an elderly woman. Burial 4 was a younger individual, also likely a bundle burial in a cylindrical pit. Burial 3 is in a set of nested rectangular pits and has grave goods, a possum effigy bottle and a greenstone bead. And he was an older man, laid to rest in a flexed position on his side. Burial 2 they've called the deviant burial. It was a younger male.
That's what I want to be called when I die. The deviant burial.
He was interred in a cylindrical pit as well, but it wasn't like infilled the way the other ones were. It was covered with a pile of rocks.
To make sure he doesn't get out.
Yeah, I don't know. You could see in excavation that the burial was thrown in the pit, like thrown in, and then a pile of rocks was pushed on top of him. The rocks rise to the top of the pit on one side, reinforcing the idea that the rocks were piled on one edge and pushed in to cover the body.
Oh, okay.
The body itself was thrown in face down, which is a really rare burial position in Mesoamerica.
I reckon he did some bad
He did something
shit.
naughty.
He was a naughty boy, I think.
Most burials are flexed, seated, or extended facing the sky. I didn't know about the seated ones. I don't actually know much about burials in Central America, but seated, that's interesting. The lower right leg was detached from the upper leg, and this was not likely due to post-depositional movement.
So he was put there like that.
Yeah, his leg was not attached.
Okay.
Before. The sealed context was very stable due to the rock piles and the fact that it was dug into bedrock. Rodents didn't likely reach him. The leg was likely severed around the time of death. There are other cut marks on the body, including cut marks on an ulna, a humerus, the distal left femur, and tibia. The feet were missing completely.
What?
Preservation is an issue, but the other bones were well preserved. And there's no indication at all of feet in the excavation.
So, like, they should be there. It shouldn't just be a natural process.
No. Like, why would the feet disintegrate and the rest of him?
So one of his legs is completely fucking detached.
Yeah.
Both of his feet are gone.
I think from the knee.
From the knee.
Detached, and then both of the feet are gone.
So weird. Like, you kind of think, like, I always try and, like, put myself being like, okay, what was I thinking doing that to someone? Or, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like, what was the reasoning behind that? Like, did they just do something really bad and, like, that was just a way of making sure that they couldn't do stuff in, like, the afterlife?
Yeah.
Or do you know what I mean? Because that's like that didn't happen naturally. Like, they didn't just fucking happen.
No, and when so many ancient cultures take so much care in what happened, I mean, and I guess we do today as well, what we do with the dead.
Yeah, yeah. Making sure that it's perfect and it's, like, as conducive to them reaching, you know, whatever
wherever they're meant
to go, whatever.
when you have ones that
What if it was an animal?
did it to him,
Yeah.
what would be big enough in that part of the world that would do that though?
Jaguar?
True.
You know what I mean? Like, what if he just, but then why is he a deviant? Like,
Yeah.
why has he been,
Why did they put the rocks on him?
yeah, like, you know, anyway.
No indication of feet at all. They could have been removed either as trophies or to hobble the victim. There was a yellowish red staining on the leg and arm bones. Could have been pigment on the skin that stained the bones like during the decay.
Could it be like a ritual? Like a captive or like,
Yeah, maybe.
but then why would they bury them? That's another thing. Like, you know, if you've got, like, if you're at war with someone or you've got a captive or something or someone like an enemy, would you even take care to bury them? I'm not sure. Like, I actually don't know what the Mesoamericans, what they did.
I don't know either.
Yeah, sorry, I'm asking way too many fucking questions. I'm really sorry.
Don't ask me because I have no idea.
Yeah.
Of the 4 burials, burial 2 dates the latest, just a few decades before the abandonment of the site around 800 BCE.
Well, we just came up with a brilliant idea to maybe have the laptop with us.
So that we can look up stuff that we don't know. Why we haven't done this before, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. Probably because we got too drunk to think about it at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where was I? Okay, of the 4 burials, burial 2 dates the latest, just a few decades before the abandonment of the site, around 800 BCE. Even more interesting is that SR isotope analysis, which we did look up. We should both actually probably know that SR is strontium.
Yeah.
Analysis of teeth show that he was not raised in the local area. So maybe you were onto something with...
Yeah.
Maybe he was a captive from somewhere.
Yeah, maybe he was an enemy. An enemy.
In fact, those strontium levels are in range with isotope analysis of imported ceramics found at Altica. One of the reasons we were attracted to research the site was to understand its role in formative exchange systems. So they were looking at trade.
Yeah, yeah. How people like interact with each other and
yeah.
And who was interacting with who and
yeah, which I mean that's like what you did your thesis on.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Trade is so interesting.
Yeah, because it really shows the movement of not only goods but also of like culture and of ways of thinking and all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
All sorts of stuff.
Trade is good for all sorts of stuff, basically. That's my professional opinion.
And you stand by it.
And I stand by
it. People at the site imported a significant amount of white slipped and incised ceramics from a metamorphic geological region. The grains in the ceramics were of phyllite, which contrasts with the dominant volcanic rock in that valley. The strontium isotopes of ceramics and bone suggest that this individual might have come from a similar geological setting. And then he's written here, trade deal gone bad, ?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe he was trying to rip them off.
So he hasn't written where that stuff comes from, and he did attach an article to the email, which I didn't print off. So well done me.
Yeah.
You're very welcome.
Maybe we can attach that to...
Attach a link to it.
Yeah, we'll attach a link to it. So, like, if you're, like, interested... Yeah, and I guess like this, like the strontium, strontium. That's from the teeth, right?
Yeah.
So that's how they figure out. I think we like touched a bit on that when we were talking about Ötzi.
Yeah,
and that's how they figured out where he's from and stuff. And that's cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, maybe it was a trade deal gone bad. Maybe he was trying to rip them off, and they were like, "No fucking deal, like,
no deal." And you know what? We're gonna cut off your feet. So
you can't.
Nice try, buddy.
Cut off your feet so you can't get to anywhere else and try and like, you know, do dodgy deals with any of our neighbours.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Yeah. That's pretty hectic.
Yeah, so that's what I had.
Cool. That's really cool because it's like, it's not, there's not a lot that we can put our personal, you know, our personal stories and our personal,
No.
you know, what we've done. And so that's really cool. It's like, I don't know anything about Belize. It's such a small little.
It's honestly it's one of the most interesting places I've ever been. Like the region, I think like a lot of Belize is kind of not run by, but like Mennonites own a lot of the land.
Okay.
And Mennonites are kind of a Lutheran offshoot.
Oh, okay. I didn't
So
know
they're
that.
kind of like Amish.
Oh,
They speak German.
really?
Yeah. So
In
like
Belize?
so like where our camp is, like, and even I think a lot of the jungle where the sites are is owned by the Mennonite community.
That's so
And so like
random.
there's like a little kind of cafe, internet cafe thing that we can walk to from the camp that's run by the Mennonites. So we're like, if we leave camp, we're not allowed to like we're not allowed
Revealing.
to wear revealing clothing, or if we go to the general store or anything, you have to like cover up a little bit. And
Which I can imagine is a little bit annoying because I can imagine it's
it's hot.
fucking hot. And all you want to do is just be free of. Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, really very an interesting place. And then you go more to like Belize City or like out to the islands, and it's much more like the islands are much more what you imagine Caribbean islands to be like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, because obviously you worked with a lot of like the indigenous community.
Yeah,
So you worked with Mayans, which
Yeah.
is fucking cool.
And I remember, so a lot of the Mayans that live there now, I don't actually know much about the displacement of people
Yeah.
in that region or like the civil wars and stuff, but they're not originally from there.
Okay.
And I think it was the first year I was there, we were excavating a burial, and that's the only time I've ever excavated a burial. And it was really, like the soil and stuff was really moist and it was really decomposed. It wasn't like, it just was clearly human
Yeah.
remains within a structure that we were excavating.
Yeah.
Which I think what they sometimes did would like bury their dead like in the house
Okay.
in a kind of walled up
Okay.
cupboard thing.
I'm pretty sure I've seen like communities still do that today, like in South America.
Yeah.
And maybe even African communities as well. Like still, I think that's like a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were excavating it. It made me cry, especially. I have talked about this on a friend's podcast when he interviewed me. Like, I felt being, I was with a bunch of Westerners, or everyone pretty much was from America. There was some like Australian, some English. Being Westerners excavating an Indigenous person, it was just like, oh, this does not feel good. And so I cried. I was just like, I don't feel comfortable. Like, and I asked one of the workers I was with, like, how do you feel about this? And he was just like, I don't give a shit. That's not my ancestor. Because he's from a different area originally.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, it was like, this doesn't feel right for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's when I knew that bioarchaeology was not for me.
Yeah. I know people who like I've had like explicit like conversations, like people I've worked with who like asked me like flat out, like, are you okay with digging up burials in general, like whether or not like they're your own culture, like, and I was like, I've never done it, so I can't yeah, I can't say. And he was just like straight up like, I'm like so against it.
Oh.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, he was like, yeah, I'm so against it because like, you know, people are buried for a reason, you know, and the communities that buried them and their ancestors that buried them, you know, you don't want them to be touched. So I get it, but it's also a part of research and it's
It's a part of archaeology.
a part of archaeology
Whether we like it
or not. It's
or not, or agree with it or not, it is a part of the discipline.
But often, like, you stumble across it. It's not like you're seeking out because you don't know what's there until you dig it.
Yeah.
You might like dig a certain place and be like, okay, cool, we found a burial here. So you might anticipate that you might find more around it, but you don't know until you do it. And that's also a part of it.
Yeah.
It's not like you seek it out, you know, because you don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it is a really complicated thing about what we do, even with not just burials, but even with artifacts. Like I said, I think it's amazing that the Maya research program, none of the stuff leaves Belize.
Love it.
Which is really important. But as kind of we all know the history of archaeology.
Repat.
Yeah, like stuff gets taken and even like, so lots of the sites in Belize are looted or have been looted over the last even just 50 years.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you can walk at like markets and buy.
It's crazy.
And buy stuff that's been looted.
That's crazy.
And that's wrong from a research perspective. But then there's this other argument that's like, people need money. That's their heritage.
So they can do what they will.
So they can do what they want with it.
Yeah. It's actually really, I've actually never looked at that perspective before, but it's so totally true. You know, it's their heritage. It's their, why can't they kind of thing.
Yeah. And like, obviously we're like, oh, but the context.
but the recording.
Where did it come from?
They must know all the things.
Yeah. And there is a thing with archaeology that is, there's like not just archaeology, like a few different fields where there's like a sense of entitlement to the knowledge.
Yeah. And I feel like that's archaeology in a fucking nutshell.
Yeah.
You know, I've said what I've said, and therefore that is law.
Yeah.
And therefore everyone shall believe.
And we can look after your stuff better than you can look after your stuff.
Yeah.
Like
and
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Everyone deserves to know about this. It's not just your history, it's everyone's history.
Yeah.
That kind of mentality, which you can understand it, but you can also understand the other side of it.
Absolutely.
Where it's like,
basically it's like an entire fucking
you actually
grey
don't
area.
have a right to my history.
No, totally.
Yeah.
It's such a grey area. But, you know, I feel like, you know, mostly, at least in my experience, I mean, mostly speaking, I think communities do love the fact that archaeologists come out there and do try and find out more about their own culture and about their own past and about their own ancestors. And I think that generally speaking, it's always a really positive thing.
Yeah.
Because how great is it to know more about where you came from and what was happening then, and maybe it sheds a little bit of light of, you know, the culture that you have now. And, you know, and I think mostly speaking, it's a really positive thing. And I think most communities do see it that way.
But it's complicated.
But it's very complicated. Yeah. It's a grey area.
Yeah.
And there are and it's like anything. And it's just like fucking society now too. It's just like everything's a little bit of a grey area. There's a lot of right and a lot of wrong in a lot of different aspects of it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to mention.
And everyone has very strong opinions.
And everyone has extremely, very fucking strong opinions.
Yeah.
But I would like to shove down your throat. I'm up. All right. So just quickly, I want to talk about one of my favourite movies ever being Apocalypto from 2006. And I just wanted to like bring back to like the, you know. I
haven't watched it for a very long time.
Me neither. And after remembering it now, doing like this research.
That was a Mel Gibson one.
It was a Mel Gibson one, yeah, from 2006, which I have very mixed feelings.
What an absolute crackpot
He's
that guy is.
so fucking wild. He's fucking all over the place. And yeah, anyway, I think he did a really good job directing this movie, and that's all I'm going to say about
Him.
how I feel about Mel Gibson. But I loved that movie, and I remember watching it for the first time and just being fucking blown away. I thought it was just, I don't know, I thought it was incredible. I think it was really brutal, but also just cinematically, like, just really fucking cool. Anyway, so that's about Mayan culture and goes back to just before it's set just before the Spanish colonization or
Invasion.
you know. Yeah, so I've decided to look at not particularly archaeological sites, but looking at like Mayan culture and looking at the Mayan underworld.
Cool.
And the beliefs around that. So it's a bit of a crash course because I just thought it was so fucking cool. I spent hours just deep diving into it because I just got lost in it. So the Maya have a book called the Popolva. I think that's how you say it. Probably not. Very sorry.
We're always sorry. We're forever sorry on this podcast.
We're forever sorry, forever. Which is basically a text that recounts the history and the mythology of the Maya. And it's specifically targeted for the Quiche people. I think that's how you say it, Quiche, I think, who are from Guatemala, areas of Belize, Honduras, El Salvador, and some Mexican states, including the Yucatan.
Okay.
So it's like this massive geographical, cultural area of the Mayans. Originally, it was an oral tradition, obviously passed down. But then it was actually written into a book around 1550.
Okay.
Credited to a Spanish Dominican friar. So basically which is really interesting because when the Spanish came in, they destroyed every fucking little thing when it came to anything cultural knowledge, any knowledge whatsoever to do with Mesoamerican. You know.
Which a lot of invaders do. That's a part of invasion.
Absolutely. It's like you
fucking try and decimate.
Yeah. And like the re-education, you know. But this guy, he actually wrote it all. So he obviously had someone to help him, like in like the local language, but also in Spanish. So you've got kind of both, like a translation, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And the fact that he took time to actually do that and to actually keep that. I don't know about the guy and what else is done, but at least that I think is something that's really important because it's something that got to, was kept and you know, got to be published and stuff. Anyway, and in this book, it details obviously a lot about the mythology, but also a lot about the underworld and describes what the Maya viewed the underworld and how it was made up. So the underworld is called Xibalba. I think it's Xibalba. So, but I think you pronounce it like G, you know, like so Xibalba. That could be totally wrong. Please correct me. Which means place of fright.
Okay.
So it's hell. It's basically hell, and it's not a great place. It's basically a really scary place. There's also an American hardcore metalcore band called Xibalba from California, which I find really funny because I'm pretty sure as soon as I saw it, I was like, I think I've fucking seen that somewhere. I haven't listened to them, but I'm fairly certain that I've seen them tour with bands that I used to listen to. So that's really funny. And of course, there's a band called The
Place of Fright.
The Place of Fright. Like that makes so much sense. Anyway, so the Mayans believed it was located at the far west, which makes sense since massive amounts of burials were located at the west coast of the Yucatan Peninsula.
Okay.
It's like the westernmost point of the Mayan territory.
That's also, so even though I've been to Belize a number of times, I've never actually been to Mexico. Mm-hmm. Oh, I think we crossed over a little creek to go and buy some rum. But I haven't actually been to Mexico, but I really want to go to the Yucatan because that just off the Yucatan Peninsula in the ocean is the fucking crater where the meteorite that knocked out the dinosaurs.
Oh, shit.
It's there.
Oh, no way.
You can look at images of it.
And it's right there. Holy shit. That'd be huge. Cool.
Yeah. So I was just like, Yucatan, yes. That's like one of the
Yucatan.
places I really want to go because I actually really want to go and see that.
That's really cool.
I just watched for the second time the last Jurassic World movie last night.
I can't bring myself to watch them.
Really?
Yeah, I can't do it.
I love dinosaurs.
I love dinosaurs, and especially as a kid, I was obsessed with dinosaurs.
But you can't watch.
I don't know. I think like the new movies that came out.
They're fun though.
The same thing happened when I. Okay. So when I was a kid, I used to love all the Jurassic Park movies, and I used to love what's that movie? With the big monster, Japanese Godzilla. And then I watched it again after like so many years, and I just fucked myself up. I just fucked myself up. I watched it, and it was such a terrible idea because all I'm thinking about is how bad it looks compared to like today's.
So you haven't watched any of the new Jurassic?
I have watched one of them.
Okay.
Which I think was like, I don't know, there's three, right? I think it might have been the second one, or could have been the second one that came out of the three. And I just couldn't fucking do it. I love Chris Pratt as an actor. I think I've just ever since
Parks and Rec.
I just love him. But I can't do it. I can't do it.
I would like to try and watch the first one. If you haven't watched the first one, I'd like to try and watch that with you. I can't make you like Harry Potter, but I feel like I have to force you to watch.
All right, well, let's do it.
The new Jurassic.
Let's do it. Okay, let's make a night, and then we'll get back to you, and we'll see how. Yeah, because I love dinosaurs. I really do, and
I'm not so sure that you do.
What? Oh, okay. All right then. Probably. I don't know how to convince you. To be honest, how do I convince you? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But I don't know. I just couldn't do it. Anyway, I digress.
No, I digressed. Sorry about that.
It's fine. Okay, so yeah, the Mayans believed it was located at the far west, which makes sense because the burials were usually buried in the west of settlement or the west of even the territory. You entered Xibalba through a cave or an area of still water on the surface of the earth. And there was 9 levels, underworld levels. So when you entered it, there was 9 levels to get through, to get to like the end or the bottom, I guess.
I mean, if it's the place of fright, like I'm not going to try really hard to get to the
No, like I'm like I'd be like there and be like I'm good.
I'll get to the first one and be like, okay, I'm good.
I'm good. I'm done. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's really scary. Thanks. I'm done. So like any cave whatsoever, or any area of still water could be a potential entrance.
Okay.
So like if you're put yourself back into like 2,000 years ago and you see any cave or anything, like that could be a potential, place to get in there.
Right.
So the underworld had 9 levels. It's also the reason why the tomb pyramids often have 9 levels or tiers. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that. And I never counted before, but a lot of there's like, for example, there's Temple 1 at Tikal. Also the pyramid of, I'm going to say this so wrong, Kukulkan at Chichen Itza.
Chichen Itza, yeah.
Yeah. And the Temple of Inscriptions at Palenque.
Yeah.
Is it Palenque? Yeah. They all have the same things. They're all 9 levels. Huh. Yeah, and it's supposed to symbolize going through the 9 levels of Xibalba.
I wonder if, because obviously there are stepped pyramids all over the planet.
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard that before, but I've never actually thought about it. And I wonder if stepped pyramids elsewhere in the world or ziggurats or, you know, like
True, yeah.
if there's a meaning behind how many steps there are.
Yeah, actually, I don't know. I've never actually thought about that. But true, maybe there's a connection. That'd be cool. So the underworld was ruled by between 9 or 14 gods, and I got different
Okay.
readings on that. So I think there's 10, but I think from most of the things that I've got, I've heard 10.
Yeah.
But then there's 9, or there might be 14. So I think it just depends maybe which region of the Maya civilization. Like, we're talking about a massive civilization that happened at different periods of time. So you're naturally going to have different variations of your culture.
Of course.
And that might also mean the underworld and like the gods. So the names of these gods are amazing. They're so amazing.
I can't wait.
And not to be confused with some of your favorite death metal bands. And I'm not going to lie.
I don't listen to metal, but Raquel does.
Yeah, and I'm not going to lie. I was just like, I see where they get this from. I see now. So these names, which may or may not be also death metal bands, include Pus Master, my personal favourite, Bone Scepter, Skull Scepter, Jaundice Master, Blood Gatherer, Bloody Claws, and Death 1 and Death 7. There's more.
They're incredible.
They're incredible. They're amazing.
Pus Master.
Pus Master? I mean, why? I don't think there's a death metal band called Pus Master yet. There could be. I'm sorry if that's you. But
If it's not taken,
if
it's
not
up
taken,
for grabs.
It's up for fucking grabs. I think you should take it. Jaundice Master, I love it. I love it really takes you there. You know what I mean? So Xibalba is supposed to be huge. It's not just like a small place. It has rivers, it has terrain, but varying types of terrain. So it's just like, it's almost like Earth, but dark as fuck, basically. So in order to get to the 9th level, you have to face a whole bunch of trials and dangers by the dead that is super hard to get through.
But is the 9th level a really horrible place to go? Because
Then why the fuck would you go there?
why am I facing all these?
And I couldn't find that. I could not find the answer to that. So I looked, I spent hours on this yesterday, just deep diving and realizing I'd spent way too long. Just like, Peter went up to me so many times, was like, what the fuck are you doing? Don't know where I'm at. But I don't know what you actually get to. So do you find peace? Do you cross to the other side? I'm not really sure.
Okay.
But basically, you just have to be there and you have to get through stuff, these 9 levels. So some of these 9 levels include, so as you're passing through Xibalba, you have to cross through dangerous mountains, rivers of blood, rivers of pus, and crossing rivers of scorpions. Just to name a few.
I think
But pus, making such a...
a river of it?
A river of it, but making such a specific...
Like a river of blood. I get it.
I get it. I can understand that. But pus?
But I think maybe they're onto something, because a river of blood, I wouldn't feel too uncomfortable trying to cross.
I could do that. I think I could do that.
A river of pus?
I don't think I could do that. I think that's going a little bit too far for me.
There'd be a lot of vomit.
Just vomit and pus.
There'd be a lot of vomit happening.
Anyway, if you've just come to this podcast now, it's a really great time to start.
Welcome.
So also, you also had to go through obstacles in the dark. So at one point, one of the trials that you have to do, it's literally you're just in a place and it's dark and you just have to get through it, which is really hard to do. Also, I do that all the time, every night. So I can understand. It's hard. It's a bad place to be. Getting through rooms with hungry attacking jaguars is another one. Rooms with fire, and also rooms with knives and arrows that are just random that, can get you at any time. So it's not just I don't know. It's a really fucking hard, I don't know, what would you call it? It's almost like a...
Is there a video game of this?
There should be.
Right?
There should be. I haven't heard of one. I should know. I haven't heard of one. So people were often buried with weapons or effigies of dogs or real dogs to help them in their quest to get through Xibalba, which is very similar to Egypt. And it immediately came to mind when I was reading through this. When you when you go to the temple of the Kings, the Valley of the Kings, sorry, and you go through some of the temples there, it's that's what you see on the walls. So I don't know, when you look at tombs and all the hieroglyphics, that's actually what you're seeing. You're seeing all the places and all the things that they have to get through. And the specific little trials and tribulations. There's like a snake, I think, is one of them, or a serpent or something. And they get often, ancient Egyptians were buried with effigies and with weapons, or really with weapons, but with things that could aid them into that. And it was the exact same thing.
And interesting that, the dog connection, that Anubis, who is the dog-headed god, is the god of the dead.
Yeah.
In Egypt.
Yeah.
And I have always thought, Anubis is a jackal.
Yeah.
But there is that Central American native
the hairless dog. The hairless dog.
That's black with yellow eyes.
And it looks exactly
like Anubis.
It looks like Anubis. I've always thought that.
Yeah.
I've always thought that for years and years and years. It's like that. I've just kicked my phone. It's the hairless dog. I think they used it for meat. I think they used to.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think they used to use that dog for meat, but it's a hairless dog.
Yeah,
and I've always thought that.
And they are stunning.
Beautiful.
What are they called?
Beautiful. I don't think we'll be able to pronounce it.
Yeah, probably.
I'm just putting it out there. Just do hairless dog. Yeah. Mexican. Yeah. Just click that.
That's what.
See, I told you.
XOLOI.
We'll put it up here.
TZCUINTLI. So we embarrass ourselves enough and possibly offend people enough.
Yeah,
We're not going to try and say it.
I'm not going to even.
But my God, they're beautiful.
They're beautiful dogs.
Anyway.
I'll put a photo up and you can see it, and it looks very much like
Anubis.
Interesting. So, super cool. In 2008, a breakthrough was made by an underwater archaeologist, which made me think of you when you were just talking about your little underwater escapades in Belize, from the University of Yucatan. He had spent 5 years basically pouring through Spanish Inquisition records to find any information of potential sacred cave sites that might relate to their I don't know, cultural, or
the underworld.
The underworld,
connection.
So maybe they used cave sites to do whatever. And he spent 5 years, and it's really sad when you look at the Inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition. And I've recently read through books from other people, from Brian Mareschko and other people who really deep dive into the Spanish Inquisition and how fucked it was, and basically just trying to erase everything. And so anyway, he went through it trying to find any useful information. And then his name's Guillermo de Arma, by the way, this archaeologist, Guillermo. And he asked locals in the area if they knew of any places that might coincide with some of the places that were being mentioned in the Inquisitions. And amazingly, 5 years later, it actually led to the discovery of a series of underground caves with temple platforms, staircases, roads, underground lakes, Mayan pottery, and bone fragments.
Wow.
But what's really cool about it is that this system of caves that he found, and so there was cave, and then you go into another cave, and so it's a whole system, but it perfectly represented Xibalba.
Wow.
So he found paved roads leading to plunge pools and submerged temples. Some of these
Whereabouts is this?
in the Yucatan, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Belize I'm pretty sure it's in the Yucatan. I'm pretty sure.
We can look it up.
We can look it up.
I would like to know exactly
I
what
got
it
this
is.
information.
Oh, and we might just have to go there.
We just might have to go there. We should go there, shouldn't we? That's what we say every time. And we should, and we will. I'll put up the link because I got this information actually from someone who has a website who was documenting what this archaeologist did and even put some photos up. So I'll put that up there because it's really interesting. So some of these rooms or pathways pretty much represented exactly what you would find if you were going through these 9 levels of hell to get to Xibalba. So some of this evidence includes walled-off sacred chambers only able to be entered by a fourth floor filled with spiders, scorpions, and other creepy crawlies, which is exactly what was in the text, which says like that's one of the rooms. That's one of the chambers you have to go through is to walk through a chamber of scorpions.
Why is this not?
Yeah, it's crazy. This is 2008.
How does?
At the center of the underground lake, so there was.
I'm just like, what? How is this not known?
Yeah.
Everywhere.
At the center of one of the underground lakes, they found a collapsed altar with a carving indicating it was dedicated to the 10 Lords of Death, who I just described, all the death metal lords. One of the rooms inside these caverns was filled with hanging stalactites that were almost impossible to get through without being injured, which it's like knives or like the arrows that they described in the book as well. There was a cave filled with bats, which is also described in the book. That's one of the trials you have to go through, a cave through all the bats.
Fuck?
There were caves that were either super hot or super cold due to passing currents. One of the things in the book is a room with fire, really hot. So it's just like, it's insane. Like the parallels are just crazy. And there was at least one cave that they found with bones of jaguars, and that's another one in the book. Another
where the jaguars are going to attack you.
Where the jaguars are going to attack you. So they found at least one cave with the bones of jaguars in it. So they obviously took so basically it sounds like whoever was creating or utilizing these caves took these cave systems and was like, this is the perfect spot. You've got all these natural phenomenon that naturally just vibe into this whole Xibalba kind of like terrain. And when they asked the archaeologist Guillermo Dianda why they took the trouble to create or kind of use this space, he said perhaps it was to demonstrate power or maybe used by priests to demonstrate the terrors they would meet on the road to Xibalba. So as like kind of like a trial. Like let's see how you go in the living life to see how you would go in the afterlife.
Like where we got the text, like the information about it was the friar that had written based on
So he wrote the text. It's mostly about the mythology and like where the Mayans came from. He got that information from like locals. But the main story in this book is actually to do with, I haven't written it down because I thought it was just too long, but it's actually to do with these two twins who are playing the ball game, like the Mesoamerican ball game, and they get kind of lured into Xibalba by one of the gods, and they die. And then one of the daughters of the gods, basically they play the game, they die, and one of the daughters of the gods holds one of the heads and becomes pregnant with the offspring of one of the brothers.
Okay.
And then I could be butchering this, but this is what I remember from what I read. And then she has these children, and these children, who are the son and uncle of the two people that originally died, go back into the underworld and go through all these trial and tribulations to play another game of this ball game kind of thing. So it really dictates who's involved, what you have to do in Xibalba, and that's how we know what they believed.
Incredible.
It's really cool. It's really, really cool. that's not all I have, unfortunately. I keep going on. I don't stop.
We love it.
Which kind of ties into the next thing I want to talk about, which is the Mesoamerican ballgame, or in classical Maya, called pits.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is the ball game. I think it's also in Apocalypse. I think they play it for a bit. I think they do. Yeah, and for those who don't know, it's basically like soccer kind of, or football, but Mesoamerican, and kind of its origins. It's really cool. Anyway.
Yeah, we thought we found a ball court in Belize. We actually didn't, but there was.
That's so cool.
It would have been.
Okay, so this ball game likely originated earlier than 2000 BCE, but I couldn't find any evidence of archaeological sites dating from earlier than that. But they think
That's where it started.
Yeah, so they might have found maybe sites that show depictions of it that are earlier than the ball courts that they've found, which makes sense. So they might think that, like, well, clearly it was before then, but we just don't have the evidence to suggest that they actually played it yet. We don't know the exact rules, so we don't know exactly how this ball game was played. And it probably wasn't just one game, but maybe multiple different games over multiple different periods under this kind of family called the Mesoamerican Ballgame, basically.
I mean, and that's like any game anywhere. The rules are going to, I mean, if you play down ball somewhere, like the rules are going to be slightly different too.
Exactly. You've got different periods, different time periods, different areas. Yeah. Of course, you're going to have like differences. So basically, generally, it was also played by the Aztecs as well. So this is not just a Mayan thing. It's kind of everywhere in the region, but they had varying rules and stuff. So generally, the game was played by hitting the ball with your hip, the Mayan version, or your thigh. Although there is heaps of evidence to suggest that similar games were played with wooden sticks or bats, even using the forehand and hand stones, which I think were in other areas. Maybe the Aztecs used those. But the Mayans generally used the hips or their thighs.
I wonder where the rules have come from, like what texts or
they've literally
murals or.
So this is it. So I was looking through it, and we don't have any rule book, but this is just from what we've seen on stone reliefs or artwork.
Or murals,
so we're just taking the artwork and being like, cool, they're using this one there, and maybe this rule's there.
Yeah.
And so they used a rubber ball made of latex and sap, natural latex and sap made from like local trees. And the balls were varying in size. So like it could be, whatever. They found ball courts all over Mesoamerica in both Mayan and Aztec sites. The courts are built of stone, are long and narrow and flanked generally by sloping walls.
Walls, yeah.
Yeah, so that if you hit the ball on the side, they come back at you kind of thing, which is really cool. And were used for ceremonial and ritual purposes mainly. But they also think that they were
classic
small...
archaeology. It must be ritual.
Must be. That's number one, absolutely, where we always go to. Is it ritual? It has to be ritual. Ceremonial? Definitely. But they also probably made smaller makeshift like courts as just for fun. So just like, people wore protective gear, like knee pads. No shit. Like knee pads, which is super cute, like safety first. Totally believe in that.
Always.
And
wrist guards, elbow pads.
But and they're
helmet with the chin. I'm just thinking about when I was like 7 going rollerblading, like what I would wear. Those like plastic wrist guards.
That you have to strap on. Yeah. Love the knee pads. Also wore capes, headdresses, and gloves and other stuff as well. So it was also kind of pageantry involved.
Yeah.
And maybe even like wearing...
people are going to be watching.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
show out.
Absolutely. And we know this because of paintings and stone reliefs showing us this.
Yeah.
Human sacrifice was associated with the game, which is super cute. Although, interestingly, I read that human sacrifice is associated with the ball game later in the archaeological record.
Okay.
So only from 800 to around 1200 AD. So the classical Mayan period, which you were talking about before.
Yeah.
So prior to that, we're talking BC.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually associated, well, generally speaking, maybe not so much associated.
And I mean, obviously, like there is proof that, like there's plenty of proof that human sacrifice was a part of the culture. But there's been a lot of discussion as well about the invaders convincing everybody that
Yeah. Like propagating that kind of...
they're barbarians, and
No
so
way.
that's where some of that dialogue has come from.
I do
like,
agree with that.
propaganda about.
I do agree. There's a lot of archaeological evidence to suggest
Of
that there
course.
was a lot of human sacrifice
Yeah.
as well. And I think that was more... And I think like Apocalypto as well, when you watch that movie... That's,
Just coming back to Apocalypse.
no, but like when you watch that movie, like it's so full on.
Yeah.
And it's so outside of the norm for so many people that it was just like, it's so hard to put yourself...
No,
there.
totally. I had one lecturer who talked about Mayan and Aztec culture, and no one had talked about this kind of thing in a class that I'd done before, who they kind of said like, yes, there was human sacrifice, and when we look at it with our lens,
Exactly, yeah.
we frown upon it.
Yeah.
But actually, who are we? I mean, you look at how we treat animals
Absolutely.
in the meat industry. Like, who are we to judge or frown
Absolutely.
upon a culture that we are so far removed from in time and
Absolutely.
distance?
Yeah.
I just had never had anyone sort of explain that before.
It's
that,
so
like,
it's so true. And I think that's like the main reason, being an archaeologist, why I have an issue with archaeology is because we tend to do
I've got
that.
heaps of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We tend to do that. We
Yeah.
tend to look at it in our own lens, or you read other people's works or findings, or whatever, and it's like the way that they rationalize or justify what they found. I mean, in my opinion, we just don't know. And
Yeah.
we just don't know. And
We
we can
just
make our
make the
best
best,
guess. But even in archaeological texts or in journal articles, or there's a lot of... Actually, this is something I brought up in this. I think I bring it up later. Something actually I want to talk about is how much we, in archaeology, data, people can manipulate data and people can manipulate narratives.
Very easily.
And people and archaeologists don't really talk about this very often because it's often their own findings and they obviously want to propagate their own findings, and that's fair enough. But it's something that we need to be wary of. And it doesn't matter if you're on the seat or on the side of saying that you could be on basically both sides, and you could still be right or you could still be wrong. And I think we need to be a lot more open. That's my personal opinion.
I know people who have, and it ends up kind of extending across a lot of science in general.
Absolutely, yeah.
I know people who have seen data be manipulated.
Yeah. Firsthand.
So, yeah. So, yeah.
But it's not something that I really want to get into too much because
and we're not going to.
Absolutely not. But it's just something to keep in
think
mind.
about.
It's something to keep in
Yeah.
mind. It's just no matter which fence, which side of the fence that you want to sit on.
On anything.
I think you need to be really wary of that. And especially something like this, like what you were talking about, of what lens you look at things in. You could put your entire career on propagating a certain narrative that you truly believe is true, but that might be seeing it from a certain lens, and it might not necessarily be the actual truth.
Yeah.
And I think we just need to be careful of that.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. So where was I? Human sacrifice. a great part to be talking about. So Mayan art also shows captives being sacrificed after losing a rigged game. Severed heads are particularly associated with the game. So it was just every time we see like artwork or it seems to be like severed heads are particularly somehow connected with the ball game. Ball courts at El Tajin, I don't know how to say it, and at Chichen Itza both show sacrifice of practice players, maybe actual teams, like structured teams or captains, which is really interesting. So it's not just random people playing the sport. Maybe you had communities who had like soccer teams or football teams that we would have now, which I think is pretty cool. Not so cool for the ones that got beheaded, but pretty cool that you had that to begin with. Some of the symbolism has been speculated, where the ball game represents a symbol of warfare, intimately connected to death and fertility. Others have speculated symbolism connects the ball game as being like the ball of the ball game being the sun and the stone ring. So not all of the ball courts have the stone rings.
Okay.
It's just some of them. But the ones that they do have them, they speculate that maybe they're like the sunset or the sunrise or the equinox and the ball, maybe the earth goes through it, maybe. Yep. And also speculate that maybe it's something to do with cosmic duality, where you have light versus dark, light versus the underworld. So playing the ball game basically means that you are personally participating and maintaining the cosmic order of the universe.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool.
Yeah, really cool.
And also, I'm going to end it here, but archaeologists have found heaps of little figurines of players. Like this is a really important part of their culture. Yeah. Much like, and I think about it now, we just had the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, sport in general, especially, I feel like soccer is probably the most important, most popular sport globally.
Especially in South America.
And people live and breathe it.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that people were doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, even with, you look at like Rome and as much as awful shit happened in the Colosseum and stuff, it was still that sport as entertainment.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
We've been doing it for thousands of years.
Yeah.
People have been doing it for thousands of years.
People get into it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of it's kind of nice to know that we never really change in a way. Kind of cool.
Yeah. When you do find those connections to the
parallels.
That are real. One thing I did want to say, you have mentioned a couple of times, like paintings or we can put up a photo. I actually have deleted, like accidentally, I deleted a lot of photos, but there's actually not many Mayan murals that have ever been found. Like there's
survived,
no, because of the humidity in the area.
Of course,
So the paint just
yeah.
So if you didn't catch that, that's the scientific.
That's where Belle stands in the scientific. Yeah.
So one of the years that I was illustrating, there was remnants of a mural at a structure that I had to do a technical illustration of.
Fuck, that's so cool.
And it was like
so attracted to you right now.
The wall was like, it was maybe like 2 or 3 meters by 2 meters. And there was just like little patches of mural that was left on the wall. So I had to like measure everything out and draw what was on there.
Was it, in my head, I would think it was all red with like, I could be completely wrong, with there like white figures or black figures?
I'll show, like we'll put up probably the only photo that I have of me doing it. And you can see like there's barely anything.
Yeah.
But from what there was, you could see that the wall had been painted. So most of it was just stone, like all the paint had come off.
Yeah.
But where there was paint, you could see that there was multiple layers of paint.
Yeah.
So the wall had been painted over many times, red and white mainly.
Yeah. Cool.
And then there was like little parts of figures that were on it. So we'll put up a photo.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Some real archaeology, guys. I'm a real archaeologist. There you go. That's really fucking cool.
That was the only thing I thought of. But that was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't know any, like,
No.
the fact that there is a real cave that
Yeah, I have
it's
to.
so interesting.
I have to show you. I have to show you this thing.
My first thought when you were talking about it was like, okay, so the friar or whoever his troop were with, they've like got some people captive or whatever, and they're like, okay, we're not going to kill you. Not that friars really killed people, but we're not going to kill you if you tell us about the underworld, because that's what we want to learn about. And whoever it was like, I went to this really crazy cave once.
So when you first walk in, there's just these like massive rooms of scorpions inside. But then you like go to the next room. Yeah, maybe.
No, that's not it. But that was my first thought. I was like, someone just panicking.
That'd be really.
Like, I went somewhere really scary once. I'm just going to describe that.
But how crazy is that they actually
It's
found
wild.
somewhere that almost exactly demonstrates what they thought hell was like.
Yeah.
Or Xibalba was like. Crazy.
And that all the step pyramids have that number
Yeah.
of levels, and
I don't know if all of them do, but at least certain ones that I think mean something,
Right.
you know. But I thought that, I was like, fuck, I've never even thought about that. Where that meaning comes from, where the number comes from. But yeah, as soon as I deep dived into it, I was just like, holy shit.
we got a lot to learn.
I got a lot to learn. Anyway.
So that's it.
That's it. Hope you learned something, because
We
fucking
did. Yeah, we did. For sure.
Yeah. And let us know if you liked it. If you want us to talk about anything other.
Yeah, if you have
Any other
any
stuff?
specific requests or corrections.
Or corrections.
anything, or you just want to say hi, please do it.
Let us know.
And we will chat to you next time.
Cool.
See ya. Bye.